Over the years, I've bought every kind of planner that you can think of. I have tried every planning system that you can think of. None of them worked for my brain. Here's the thing, most planning advice assumes consistency, executive function, and motivation on demand. And for people with brains like mine, that assumption leads to a shame cycle where I fail at the system, I blame myself, I buy a different planner, rinse and repeat. For ADHD brains, the system needs to flex to your capacity. The system needs to serve you, not the other way around. So today I'm going to show you how I plan my week as a person with ADHD. There's no hustle, there's no shame involved. This is about rhythms over routines and about planning for the brain you have, not the brain you wish you had. Is this a perfect system? No, but it's the one that works for me right now. Okay, first is the setup. I have an office, but I prefer to work on this little table I have set up in my living room because there's so much natural light in here. It's just better for my mental health. And I do most of my planning in Notion and Notion Calendar, but you can use whatever you want, whatever works for your brain. So I have my laptop with Notion open and my iPad with Notion Calendar open. Now we're actually going to start by looking at last week. So I open up my calendar to the previous week and I take a look through everything that I did. I think something that's really common in ADHD brains is that we get to the end of the week and we feel like, wow, I didn't do anything. But we really just forgot what we did because functional memory is not our strong suit. One thing that can help combat that is a done list. So just a piece of paper that you keep next to your workspace where you write down things that you finish. This is different from a to-do list because a to-do list has things on it that you haven't finished. A done list has only things that you've finished. So anyway, I look through the last week and I look at all the appointments that I had and I look at all of the time that I had set aside for different tasks and I just take stock of what I finished. And then I like to kind of reflect on my energy level for the last week and on how I felt, just to kind of help me get closure on the previous week. Something to keep in mind as I go to the next part of this is that I work for myself and I work from home. So your calendar is going to look different from mine. That's okay. This also works with any kind of planner, paper planner, digital planner, Notion, whatever. It's the principles. So take what works for you here and leave what doesn't. I take a brief look at the calendar for the upcoming week, and if there's anything already on it, this would be a good time to check what phase you're in of your cycle to see what your energy levels might look like. Just do an energy and capacity check so that I'm going into it with a realistic idea of what I can get done in the week. And then I find my anchor points. So these are points in the calendar where things are scheduled and they're time bound. So that's appointments, picking my kids up from school, any meetings that are on the calendar, recurring events. These anchor points give my week a shape, and then from here I can figure out where my tasks are going to go. Then we move to Notion for the tasks. The way I have my Notion dashboard set up, I have a daily task list that actually refreshes and repopulates every single day, and it has things like refill my water bottle, take my meds, tidy one zone of my house, post to Instagram, everything that you would use a habit tracker for, but habit trackers cause me to shame spiral, so I don't use habit trackers. I use this resetting to-do list, so I can't see like the days that I've missed. There's no record of the days that I've missed. It's just today. Today is the only time that exists. So that repopulates every morning. I have a section for client tasks. I have a section for tasks for my business, and I have a section for personal tasks as well. The next thing that I do is check to see if there are any due dates for tasks coming up this week. And if there are, I block off time in my calendar to make sure that I get those done by the due date. So for example, next week I need to contact a lawyer for a legal matter, and I need to apply for health insurance because my husband just quit his job. So we need to get on a new health insurance plan. So those are on my docket for next week. So I'm going to block off a couple of hours on Monday to make sure that I have time to get those done. So that time is set aside. One thing I'm really careful to not do is overschedule myself. And by that I mean scheduling myself like down to the minute. I used to try to time block, but that was too rigid for my brain, and it felt like as soon as one time block got off track, the whole day was ruined. So I do not overschedule myself when I'm doing my weekly planning. I build in a loose structure with the anchor points and the due dates. And then throughout the week, when I start my day, that's when I block out things like client work, content and engagement, all that kind of thing. It leaves some slack in my schedule, some slack in my workday. So if something happens, like I end up needing to pick up a sick kid from school, it doesn't derail the whole week. Remember, the point of all of this is to plan for your actual brain, not the brain you wish you had. So if your brain needs flexibility inside the structure, make sure you build in that flexibility. Because a flexible plan that you kind of half follow is better than a rigid structure that you abandon completely because it overwhelms you. And the truth of the matter is, ADHD brains tend to cycle through systems, so eventually this system will stop working for me and I'll have to figure out a new one that does work. That's okay. Sometimes my planning happens just as a brain dump on a legal pad. It depends on my capacity, it depends on my energy level. This is a planning rhythm, not a planning routine. How do you plan your week? Tell me in the comments.